Announcements about troop levels in Afghanistan. Retirees see new Tricare fees. And an Air Force helo took fire in Virginia. Buckle up, we're back at it on The Briefing. Welcome back to The Briefing. I'm Andrea Scott. If you're looking for more military headlines, please check us out on militarytimes.com and on social on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. In our top story this week, we look at the future of troop levels in Afghanistan and Iraq. For the latest, we go to Military Times Managing Editor Howard Altman.
Last week, U.S. officials made some announcement about the future of troop deployments in the U.S. Central Command region of operations. In Afghanistan, Defense Secretary Mark Esper told Fox News that the U.S. troop levels would drop from about 8,600 currently to less than 5,000 by the November 3rd election. And in Iraq, General Frank McKenzie, the Marine Corps General in charge of CENTCOM, talked about a continuing U.S. military presence there for the foreseeable future. There are currently about 5,000 troops in Iraq and another several hundred in Syria.
I don't think we're going to be in Syria forever. I don't know how long we're going to be in Syria. That's going to be a political decision, not a military decision. It's not going to be made by a uniformed officer. So we'll be ready to respond to that. And at some point, we do want to get smaller there. I just don't know when that's going to be.
In Afghanistan, the U.S. is negotiating with the Taliban, and initially that the U.S. was supposed to get down to 8,600 troops after 135 days. That has been accomplished with a full withdrawal after 14 months if it's condition-based, and that still remains to be seen. While the U.S. negotiates a drawdown in Afghanistan, I've talked to experts who say it makes sense to maintain a U.S. military presence in Iraq.
I think clearly we still have very important interests in Iraq. It is in the United States' interest that they remain stable. It is in our interest that ISIS or other groups like ISIS don't have a safe haven. And frankly, it's in our interest to have good relationships with the Iraqis as a counterbalance to what are some malign influences from the Iranians.
While the U.S. is negotiating withdrawal from Afghanistan, it's based on the conditions in that country. That situation remains dangerous and fluid, and what happens next remains to be seen.
Thanks, Howard. The FBI is now investigating after one crew member was injured when an Air Force helicopter was shot at while flying over Virginia. A Huey helicopter assigned to Andrews Air Force Base was forced to conduct an emergency landing in Manassas, Virginia, after being shot at from the ground. The crew member received a minor injury and was treated and then released at a local hospital. We'll keep you updated as we learn more. Next up, the Ike finally makes it home. The aircraft carrier Dwight D. Eisenhower is back home in Norfolk, Virginia, following more than 200 consecutive days at sea. The Eisenhower and the guided missile cruiser San Jacinto pulled into port August 9th after wrapping up a 7-month tour in the U.S. 5th and 6th Fleet. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, they broke the Navy's last record of 160 days at sea after being instructed to eliminate port visits. Next up, are you on Tricare Select? You might have some new fees. Most working-age military retirees must start paying Tricare Select fees, or they will get disenrolled from their healthcare coverage. Hundreds of thousands of military retirees will be required to pay the Tricare Select enrollment fee, starting January 1st. These fees affect retirees and family members in the so-called Group A, who are generally under the age of 65. Next up, a warning from Russia. Russia is warning that it will see any incoming missile as a nuclear attack. Russian military has said that any ballistic missile launched in its territory would warrant nuclear retaliation. The harsh warning, which came in Russia's official military newspaper, is directed at the United States, which has worked to develop long-range non-nuclear weapons. Finally, grab your popcorn, we're heading back to the movies. In our outgoing rounds this week, we have a glimpse at the upcoming film Desert One, which details the unsuccessful 1980 covert Operation Eagle Claw. The mission sought to rescue Americans as part of the Iran hostage crisis. Let's take a look.
I was 20 years old, a young Marine, and I was assigned to the United States Embassy in Tehran, Iran. I had never heard of that country. I hear thousands of people coming down to the embassy. And they started climbing over the gates.
For 2 weeks, I had to sleep with my hands in plastic handcuffs.
And I was scared to death.
The administration is now emphasizing diplomacy as the way to get the Americans released.
Iran must be the only country in the world with a television program on how to tackle American commandos in the street.
There was growing desperation.
I was very determined to get the hostages released.
We were getting ready to run for re-election.
Isn't it about time that this country decides we're going to be respected?
You can't look weak here.
The mission was very plain and simple. Bring home 52 American hostages.
The Delta Force group had been created in 1975.
Only certain people get picked to fly with the special ops.
He said, "I'll see you when I see you." I knew that he was going to Iran.
We would fly into a remote desert location.
Intel said, the road you're landing by is never traveled. All of a sudden, there's this light. I turn around, coming towards us is a bus.
There
was never a full-up dress rehearsal.
All of a sudden, I see this rolling fog bank.
Our flight instruments were starting to fail.
It was pretty disturbing.
My friend said, "Turn on your TV. Something has happened."
The whole nature of the rescue involved risk.
I never saw the president so shocked and stunned.
Carter said, if we are successful, it will be your achievement. If we are not successful, it will be my defeat.
The film will be released in select theaters August 21st and on demand September 4th. That's all we have time for this week. Please check us out on militarytimes.com and our social pages on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And check us out on Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps Times for the latest news. I'm Andrea Scott. Have a great week.